Здравствуйте!
Hello, welcome back. We are Yana and Ellen, my mother.
Your mother.
Yes. We are cooking again today from our cookbook and cultural compendium, Than Borsch. And today, I feel like I say this every time, but we have something really special that Russians are definitely obsessed with.
Blini.
Blini, or as Americans say, blini.
Blini? No, blini.
Well,
Rough.
ew.
Blini.
It's kind of hard to pronounce, I guess, but
Blini.
Blini. Blini, so they're the crepe-like pancakes, the very thin ones, and they are treated with such reverence in Russian culture. There are holidays based around them, which we're going to talk about. So stay tuned. Writers have written odes to them. They are really just, there's something. So what do we need? We need flour, first and foremost, sifted flour. To the flour, we're going to add 2 eggs. Absolutely.
1 egg. 2 eggs. 1 plus 1.
Very
is
good.
2.
Very good. Yeah, the education system definitely is good to you.
Yeah. 2 eggs.
And so, once you add the eggs and the sugar and just a tiny pinch of salt, you mix that up, and then you start adding milk to it very gradually. So there's a very long history with these blini. They were a very big part of a holiday called Komoeditsa. This was a pagan holiday, so this is pre-Christian times, so Christianity entered the country in the 9th century. And Komoeditsa was a holiday that was meant to welcome spring, say goodbye to winter. It was 2 weeks long. It was full of rituals and games, antics, feasts, merrymaking, sleigh rides. It was this fun break between a long and hard winter and a long and hard planting and harvesting season. And people really needed a little bit of relaxation between those 2 things to get through that.
Okay, I have to interrupt you. Something in the middle of putting milk when it's pretty homogeneous.
Homogeneous? I think.
Homogeneous. Oh my god, homogeneous.
Is this,
okay, I learned
would
it.
you say that this is the...
No, so now we have to mix it with the mixer, and then after that put more milk until it's gonna be desirable consistency. How did you say it? Homogeneous?
Homogeneous?
Homogeneous.
Yeah.
Oh, God, homogeneous.
I would just say smooth.
Smooth. Okay. But I want to,
But
sit
homogeneous.
more educated. Yeah, it's okay. Now also, it depends what you want, but if you want those blini to be more porous, you can add some baking soda with a little bit of vinegar. If you want them completely flat, you do not have to do that, but I personally prefer to use this one.
So there's a little bit of science that happens. The idea here is that when you mix a base and an acid, you get this bubbling reaction. And so, it creates those porous, airy bubbles in the blin. By the way, the word blin comes from mlin, which comes from milit, which is to grind. So, because you would grind the grain.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
now you know.
So it is ready.
It's ready.
It's ready.
So this is gonna sit for 15 minutes. We're gonna set up the stove, and then we'll continue our history lesson / cooking lesson.
We will. See you later. Okay, So 15 minutes passed, and we can continue the process.
And what's happening here?
Sala is happening.
Yeah.
Sala.
Sala lard, yeah. So Ukrainians especially, they're really obsessed with frozen salted lard. Well, obsessed, I don't know, I am. We are. So you can prick a piece of lard on a fork and use that to swirl around in the pan. Because you don't want to just pour oil in there. You don't want it to be like gobs of oil. You're not sauteing anything. You need it to just be evenly covered with a very thin layer. So a piece of potato pricked on a fork, and you dip that into oil, or you can put some gauze on a chopstick, tie it up there, dip it in oil to swirl it around. Either way, you don't want to gob the oil on there. You want to spread it around with something. So getting back to the historical part of this, Komoeditsa was a pagan holiday. It was meant to celebrate the coming of spring, and so bears played a big part, because bears wake up from hibernation in the spring, and they have this bear god. And bears is this Old Russian? This isn't like...
What do you mean?
Kuom, the word kuom, it meant bear.
Yes, it's Old Russian. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the name of the bear.
Yeah. So that's why it's called Komoeditsa. And so the funny thing is that there's this saying that we all grew up with, Первый блин комом, which means the first pancake comes out lumpy. It's kind of a life lesson and kind of like a literal, I don't know, it's just the first one.
Surprise.
Yeah, you just need, you need to like really get into the groove of things before they start coming out, and the first one usually doesn't come out. It comes out lumpy. Turns out that's not what this phrase was to begin with, and where it originated was Первый блин комом, not комом, which means the first pancake to the bears. Because the ritual during Komoeditsa was to give the first blin, the first pancake that you cook, you take it to a clearing and you leave it kind of as a sacrifice to the bears who are waking up from their slumber.
Also out of respect, because they're, after all, they're owners of the forests, so
yeah,
respectful.
Yeah. And there were a lot of rituals and there's a lot of symbolism that come along with these blini. So I'm gonna taste this just to make sure that we put enough sugar.
Again.
Well, this one at the kuom, anyway.
At the kuom.
So they symbolized the round sun that was coming, staying out longer, heating up the earth, chasing away winter. There was a lot of making of blini because you were spreading that warmth around. You made it for the bears, you made it for your relatives and friends and for everybody in the community. There were a lot of fun rituals. One that I like is called
Пробуди.
Пробуди.
Okay, Jana's Russian like my English.
Пробуди, but it comes from the
Awakening.
word awakening. It's to awaken. And the ritual was that it also has to do with waking up bears. There's a lot of waking up bears in this holiday. So a guy from the village would get dressed up in furs as a bear or whatever. He would just like put on a costume, a bear costume, and he would go and hide in a hole in the ground. So it was like the bear in his den, and then the whole village would, take the sticks and things, and they would go find him, and he wouldn't awaken until a young woman sat on him and like rode him like a bear, and then he would awaken and run into the forest.
And she would sing to him. Она поет ему.
What did she sing?
Пробудись, медведь, я долго тебя ждала. Something like this.
Very good. So, Before I continue, maybe we could show. Hold on. Well, after this one, we'll show how to do this little hand maneuver that we've been doing. You want to take
Maybe.
What is this thing called? Anyway, you take it, you fill it up, depending on the size of your pan, maybe halfway, and you start kind of pouring around, I think one side, like around the edges, and then you tilt the pan so that the batter covers the entire pan. It takes a little practice.
Something like this,
And you want to make sure that you have a spatula ready to flip it. You have your sala or potato or oil-soaked rag or whatever you're using ready, because you want to wipe the pan with oil between every blin, and you want to have a plate for the finished blini. So how long do they cook?
The first blini, it took like maybe about a minute on each side, but now the skillet is hot. Right now it's okay, so right now I just turned it and let's see, maybe a little bit more.
So, you've probably noticed that there is no holiday called Komoeditsa anymore, but I'll tell you what, they couldn't really get rid of it. So, in the 9th century, Vladimir the Great converted everybody to Orthodox Christianity, and then for 7 centuries, they tried to get rid of all the pagan rituals, holidays, and everything. And honestly, I don't know if they had trouble with other holidays, but they definitely had trouble with this one because people just like refused to stop. I mean,
They loved it so much.
So, eventually, in the 16th century, the church sort of, well, they didn't give up, but they changed their strategy. They're like, oh, okay, you don't want to get rid of this, fine. We're just gonna make some tweaks. We're gonna make a little adjustment here to make sure that you really like can't have a good time. So they moved some dates around. They changed some details. And with the new date of Komoeditsa, it fell during the beginning of Lent. I think during the first week of Lent. And so they were fasting during that time, which means they were on this kind of, I mean, it was like a vegetarian diet almost, because you couldn't have meat, you couldn't have alcohol, you basically couldn't have all of this stuff, and you were eating a very restrictive diet, and you couldn't really, you weren't supposed to be distracted from the spiritual life in any way.
People are invincible. That's it. So
Yeah.
the church could not do anything about that. However hard they tried, but no. People still continue to celebrate. They still continue to
Blini are invincible.
to make blini. So instead of Komoeditsa, they changed the name to Maslenitsa.
So, Maslenitsa comes from the word masla, which means butter, because they kept this blini tradition. They made them with tons of butter, so there was just a lot of butter, and it was almost like the blini part of the holiday just exploded. So there was, sure, the church reduced it from, we're struggling with this. This is a problem.
I know, but I cannot move it.
The church reduced the holiday from 2 weeks to 1 week long, but there was this entire schedule of what you're supposed to do every single day, and it's all visiting. The son-in-law visits the mother-in-law, and then the next day the daughter-in-law visits her sister-in-law, and then the sister visits the mother, and then there's like all this stuff, and you make blini for everybody every single day. And hey, guess what? Still merrymaking, still riding around on sleighs, still having a big celebration.
Sundays. So Sunday is the most important day. Sunday, everybody would go outside, and there were again tons and tons and tons of blini. And people were playing games, building castles, singing, dancing, riding those troikas.
Troika is like a horse-drawn sleigh, and I guess it's drawn by 3 horses.
3 horses.
That's why it's
Therefore,
called a
тройка.
troika, which is like 3.
Так, и последний блин. Красиво. Видишь, я докапываю тут эта дырочка, которая получается. Все. Подожди, дай мне блин положить. А дымок идет такой дымок.
And now the blini are ready. Serve them with sweet things for dipping. You can also spread caviar on them with a bit of butter. But if you're going to dip them, take the blin and fold it into quarters or eighths if that's more comfortable. Strawberry jam, wild berry jam, honey. I think I'm gonna try the condensed milk. Yum. Finish it off with some unsweetened tea. And you've got yourself a breakfast. Or a brunch. Or lunch. Or dinner.